in logistic, in communication, media, etc., etc. So we are out of time. Normally I wanted to have to leave it for a question, but I would like to introduce the next panel. The moderator will be Ilanit Malkior. Please join us. Ilanit is the, thank you. Ilanit, I think it's better if you sit on this seat, the first one, because then you can see the audience if there are questions. I made that mistake, so. So Ilanit going to present the panel in a second. Ilanit is the director of the JDA, Tourism Director, Jerusalem Development Authority. So we brought her all the way from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, which is not obvious. Going to join her will be David Cohen from Intercontinental, Rana Noch from Dakat Tishim, Michael Chai, and Roni Aloni. So please have a seat. Ilanit going to have you each one introduce yourself. And this panel is Israel is a better site for hotel technology and OTA technology. We're going to hear a little bit about what do the local industry do with technology and what works for them and what doesn't work for them, etc., etc. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Rom, I just want to say thank you for making this day. As you can see from the audience, you're really actually answering a need, and I'm sure that in the future people would ask themselves, how come it didn't happen before? So definitely travel and tech, that's something which is a challenge, which is, I think it's a language which is not really there. We understand the opportunity, we understand the need, but I think that there is still a gap. And you know, over through this panel, we will try to answer some of the questions and challenges. But before that, if you can just please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Michael Hay from Vision Hospitality. We specialize in hotel management and development, and we are focusing mainly on independent and boutique hotels in Tel Aviv, all over Israel.
And how do you see yourself connected to this day?
So our main focus is customer experience. Our whole philosophy is that a night in a hotel should be an experience and not a solution. And from that angle, we cope with the challenges of providing better and better experience. Obviously, technology is a very big part of it today.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Boker Tov, David from the Intercontinental Tel Aviv. Been in Israel now for the last 13 years in the hotel.
And your connection to this day?
I'm native, I'm Israeli, I worked a bit around the world, and I think this is not looking good, is it? And I think we've all got a mission to really stage Israel around the world. And I think our X factor is innovation, and we are currently on the hotel scene followers, and we need to gain a leadership space around the world. And innovation is the way to do it.
Interesting.
Hi, I'm Ran Enoch from the Dakat Tishim group, which is the leading OTA in Israel. And over the past 2 years, my connection to this event is I've been managing Dakar 90 Labs, which is an Israeli accelerator, the first Israeli accelerator for the travel industry. So that's my connection to it.
You are actually an OTA, a leading OTA in Israel. Right?
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Roni Aloni. I'm the vice president of the Fatal Hotel chain in Israel. Just within these days, we completed buying another hotel in Jerusalem, Ilanit, and we just signed another contract for another Nix in Herzliya. So we are having 38 hotels in Israel. We are the biggest company in Israel. We just signed some other contracts in Europe. We have 75 hotels right now in Europe. And I'm connected, being here, just trying to find the secret how to fill all these hotels with less expenses and much more thinking.
And technology might help you.
Thinking means technology in these days.
Great. So from my experience as managing director of tourism in Jerusalem, one of the challenges that I was facing when I entered my job more than 8 years ago was the fact that there were not international brands in the city. You know, a lot of people gave up on the city. It was not branded. It was not positioned as a tourism destination. So taking the importance of international chains, and I think that the other panelists actually, we saw that important experience. By the way, we are open Ritz-Carlton for businesses. So what do you see, David, the importance, we understand the importance of international chains for the brand of Israel and Jerusalem, obviously. But how do you see that actually international brand can gain from being in Israel, but really being not just as a present, but really utilizing the market?
Well, I think Israel was built for tourism. No one can copy-paste Jerusalem and the Dead Sea. And the fact that we stagnate on around 3 million tourists a year is a sad story. So all in all, we should be a magnet for tourism. And I think we really need a deep-rooted investigation to see what the reason is. Now, talking about international chains, I'd go forward first and talk about international investors, because most of the investors on the hotel scene are local. And there's not an appetite in Israel for international investors because of the red tape and the bureaucracy that it takes to open a hotel. So once international investors come into play, international chains will be coming into play and following them. But they're the first step forward.
But Ronnie, from technology point of view, I mean, you are an Israeli chain. Obviously, you're building, you're conquering the world or Europe. You're starting there. But how do you see the importance of having those, how can we gain from each other? Because obviously, like Marriott, other chains have a lot of platforms that maybe we don't use or understand the importance of them, improving our services. So the fact that international chains are here, and the fact that Israel is known to be a startup nation, do you think we can gain from each other? Did we do enough in that level?
First of all, Shai Raz was sitting here before, so we combine the information between Europe and Israel, and this is one of our strengths, having 2 units, one in Europe and one in Israel, so we can combine the experience, we can combine the whatever means. Second, I think that in Israel, the behavior of the clientele is different. And by having this experience with Israelis, I think that it might take us ahead by building the right technology, seeing the future. Because Israelis, as usual in all kinds of fields, they are first comers. And by having them, having this kind of experience, I believe that this make us to think and to find solutions for what in Europe not necessarily the needs are or the experience is.
So how do you see it as a leading OTA? Is there a dialogue really from, because I think that Ronnie pointed out actually a very interesting point, the fact that, what's make us as a community actually can help build this ongoing dialogue between, the technology platforms and hoteliers and people that, as you are yourself, an OTA selling the destination. Do you think that this dialogue is strong enough, is really existing, or it's just about selling?
Well, what I think is that we've seen over the past few years a significant change in the industry, in the travel industry, in the travel tech industry. And over the past, just for example, over the past almost 2 years, we have seen around over 150 Israeli startups which are active in the travel industry. So we do have here a really active ecosystem. I think that Israel as a startup nation has a lot of offerings to offer to the international travel industry. I think that the globalization of the travel industry is also pushing more and more Israeli startups, either graduates from the military or some elder ones, to go and try to implement their know-how and technologies on the travel industry. And we do see more and more conversation and reach outs from these startups to local players here in Israel. They're interested in getting additional information, in getting know-how, in getting commercial agreements, either with local or international players. And I think that it's really a very strong trend over the past 1, 2, 3 years, and it's growing stronger.
Are you as a company using all the amazing supply that there is?
We do our best to implement it. Not all is relevant to the Israeli market, of course. And we do see in the activity of the K90 labs, we do see it as an international activity rather than only a local activity. But we do have a lot of offerings and a lot of benefits to offer to the Israeli startups, either by providing a local beta site or by providing a connection to merchandise or commercial agreements. So we have a lot of shortcuts for these startups when they want to leverage our activity to international markets.
So you actually have two phases because you work with boutique hotel, but you also provide technology probably based on your previous experience with hotels, the need of customers. So how do you see, what's the challenge from your point of view?
So we basically see the technology in three main areas: the online booking and whatever is related to that, the customer experience, and the back office and the legacy system and the snapshots of the world. What we're doing is, we're dealing with is independent hotels, and so our challenge, and as I said before, our focus is customer experience, but we also looking into empowering the independent hotels in today's global environment, the ownership of the guest relationship, the ability to communicate with the guest before, during, and after, all those issues that are being dealt with by the global chains, by Ritz-Carlton, Marriott, and all the big ones. Fatal is doing a great job in terms of technology in Israel as well, but with the independent hotels, it's basically, they're not left, but in a way left behind, and so we're trying to cope with that challenge. We're working on a platform that will enable us to do all that, and because we are exposed and work with so many independent hotels in Israel, we have the ability to take that thinking, that innovation into the actual game and see how we can implement it on a day-to-day basis, because this is the biggest challenge that we see today. At the end of the day, Tel Aviv and Israel is full of innovation and great ideas, but and it was talked about in the previous panel, but when we get into the implementation of those things in the hotels, especially in the small hotels, it's very, very, very difficult. People need to understand that a great boutique hotel in Tel Aviv is 65 room, is operated by 15 people, out of which one is the general manager and all the others are great people, but they are not in any way technology-oriented or professionally technology-oriented. And so for us to take any great idea that flies in the room and bring it into action is very, very difficult, and it will entail bringing people from the outside, and maybe that the IT manager, who is someone who's outsourced and is working per diem, and we need to now call him and tell him that yes, we have a great idea that we want to implement, and it becomes very, very difficult. So and on that level also, what we are seeing now is that we are getting young people to work in the hotels, and they're looking for that innovation, and they're looking at our computer. I had a few weeks ago, I had a new employee coming into one of the hotels, looking at the computers and telling me, what's that? This is so old. And so all those issues that we are experiencing on a day-to-day basis drive us to really think and try to see how we can break that and bring the innovation into those independent hotels.
Now I have a question to the audience. How many of you are startups that have any relation services that they can offer to their hotels? That's quite a big numbers. Do you feel, anyone from the audience that is relevant, do you feel that actually in having this dialogue conversation with your ideas, is this actually market is open for you from the industry point of view? Do you want to tell you about your experience?
Thank you. I'm actually, if I can be pushy and throw a question back right at you guys, especially at you, Michael, I'm really interested to know about also hotel chains, but also boutique properties in Israel. If the position of revenue manager, if this is something that exists in Israel, in the Israeli hotel ecosystem today, how technologically oriented, because we're talking about Israel as a beta site for hotel technology, how tech-oriented is the revenue manager in Israel? And are they looking at pushing direct bookings or distribution? What are they interested in, Israeli hoteliers?
Thank you. I'll answer shortly, and I'll push it to you because you're doing a great job in that sense as well. So as I mentioned before, we are not in. One of my biggest partners is Atlas Hotels, and in Atlas Hotels, since we are a chain of independent hotels, we can basically appoint someone as a revenue manager and work on driving direct bookings and online bookings and whatever bookings we can get, because at the end of the day, we wake up in the morning to sell rooms, and whatever we don't sell today will not be sold anymore in time. So this is our main goal. So we're looking to do it in various ways. In small independent hotels, usually the hotel manager will have to do to deal with marketing, to deal with revenue management, to deal with all the complex, more experience required tasks. We as a company provide that knowledge to the managers as well, so the managers are not working in an absolute vacant environment, but we are not able to appoint someone in a small 50-room, 60-room, 36-room hotel as the revenue manager. But maybe you want to answer that because you're doing a great job.
I can certainly add. Of course, I can understand that in a small hotel you cannot appoint a revenue manager. In our company, we divide revenue management to two sections. One for the resorts, and the other one is for the business hotels. It's totally different story because within the behavior in the resorts applies to groups mainly, applies to different seasonality, etc. And in the business hotels, it's totally different. The behavior is a daily behavior, etc., etc. So we have a full department of revenue. We have a few people doing that, the technology and the thinking. And we are investing in these days a lot in order to find the right systems, the right technology for, from one side, the CRM system, and to the other side of the coin, also the right revenue management system technology-wise, in order to combine the needs of the Israeli market, which are different, what we mentioned before, which are totally different from what we find in Europe. If there is any kind of idea to find any solution to be 100% occupancy every night,
You
we-
buy it.
we are certainly interested in buying it. Don't forget that I also always mention that the main difference between a factory for shoes or hotel business is that what we don't sell tonight, we cannot sell tomorrow anymore. So it's a waste. And within the factory of shoes, we might sell it tomorrow for even a better price. So we are open-minded. We are investing a lot of money in that. We are using the information from Europe. We are using the information from Israel, but we still are seeking for more technology and more thinking how the future will look like.
David.
Yes, talking about revenue management, if I compare my sister hotels or brother hotels in Europe, talk about Berlin, London, Paris, I'm not talking about the latest upsets of security. When they plan their year forward, preparing their budget, they know quite precisely what international conventions they will have in their city, and they start yielding then. In Israel, because of our roller coaster occupancies, our security situation, I've been in the business for 30 years. On average, every 4 years, something happens which we have to throw the budget to hell and start taking care of the owners in terms of return on investment in very, very difficult situations. So revenue management in Israel is quite shorter lead time than you would consider in stable countries around the world. So I think it's two different scenarios, totally. So I join you and I'll invest more than you in that kind of company.
Let's invest. Let's invest together.
No, but one
Ran-
thing to see is that Israel used to import hotel managers and work with international chains, and today we're basically became almost experts in exporting our ability to operate in an unstable environment. And I think, again, that Fatal and what he's doing in Europe is a true proof to that, that today we are exporting managers that know how to cope with the day-to-day changes. And I think if you look at the United States and you look at Europe, this is really the environment that we are working in. So there's no, I mean, planning 5 years in advance. I come from hotel appraisal background, and we always would do performance for 10 years, and we would project what we think we'll do in 5 years. But today it's so different, and everything changes so quickly that it's completely different environment.
I agree with you. I think if I may just one last thing, over the last year, the kind of message that I talk about when I go overseas on my sales calls is, where do you think is the safest place in the world? It's us.
Yes, it's true.
That wasn't the case a year and a half ago. So I totally agree with you, Michael.
Going back to technology, which security is also. Ron, as an OTA, do you feel, because you're a local company, big one, but still local, do you feel that the platforms that are here can help you actually to break through worldwide?
Well, it's a good question, because the majority of the activity of the K90 group is here in Israel. But over the past year, we've developed also an international brand. It's called Loco, which is a mobile travel agency, and it's aiming into international markets. And one of the go-to markets of Loco is implementing local technologies within our mobile platform to do something different and to enter these markets. Some of them are competitive, some of them are in emerging markets, by utilizing Israeli technology. It's not yet online. It's not yet online on the application, but we are working on implementing it, and it's actually part of the plan of us to go into international markets. Yes.
Okay. Then I want to throw a question to all of you, because you are coming from a background of hotels. And I, as a city destination marketing platform, always felt that the hoteliers, and excuse me if it sounds like a criticism, but it's more, focusing in selling the room, having 100% occupancy. But sometimes when you want to sell hotel room, you want to sell also an experience which is not only in the hotel. I have this great friend sitting here, Michael, and his wife, Yael, who is having this amazing new startup called Byte Mojo, which is giving you international, by the way, they're also operating in Jerusalem, and applications which allow you to go around the market with a cart, wonderful experience. So this is just one example. But there are more examples for how your client, your customers can enjoy the destination, but it's not only about selling the hotel, it's more than that. So how much are you as hoteliers with this background giving really a place and accessibility for technology which are selling more than just the hotel in order to attract new customers or bring those who have been there in the past?
This is a wonderful question. And it's right up our alley because, as I mentioned before, we are developing a platform as part of our customer experience effort. And as I said, this is what in the heart of what we do is the customer experience. And we recognize that today customers want to go more personal, more local, and more intimate with the hotels. And so a very major part of what we do is the ability to integrate the experience of the city into what we sell and pack it in a way that will make the guests really feel that they're experiencing locally as we the locals experience it. And you can see a beautiful example of that on the Airbnb platform, where they recently integrated a lot of recommendations from the area, but in terms of the hotel experience, and we always had that. I mean, one of my first jobs were at the Pierre Hotel in New York, and I would work with the concierge, who would be a pivotal service in the hotel back at the time. Today, everyone can look for stuff on the internet, but back at the time, and it was almost 20 years ago, people would come down to the concierge, will ask about restaurants, will ask about many things, which they do today too, but it's something that has been in the hotel industry forever, and today we just need to make it more sophisticated, more deep, more accessible to the guest, and this is something that we really concentrate on.
First of all, talking about criticizing, I would not criticize, but I think that our main goal is to have the right cooperation with the Ministry of Tourism and the local, like what you are doing in Jerusalem. And I have to say that in Jerusalem, it's a good example. But of course, we need to combine. Because Ministry of Tourism is not doing enough, or the locals is not doing enough, we need to create our own festivals, etc. And of course, this has to be combined with technology. Of course, the future is to have in one package everything included, or the offer included. And this is one of our main goals. But this has to be combined between government and private businesses.
I think you're absolutely right about experiences. And if there's one experience that Tel Aviv has, and maybe we as locals sometimes forget it, It's an amazing vibe. Tel Aviv is a vibe. And that's the kind of experience we need to send out there. There are not any other cities like Tel Aviv, which is so small, such an urban beach, and it's a 24-hour day-to-day city. Now, I haven't invented that. That's what I hear from our new coming guests that are either Jewish or not Jewish. They may have come here with a certain convention, and they came here because the company forced them to, and they're absolutely shocked at what they see. How do we bring that out? I totally agree with you, Ronnie. We need a strategy. And if you look at Las Vegas, it started as a gambling city. It moved to a strategy of shows. Then it moved to a strategy of shopping. Then it moved to conventions. Then it moved to family and kids. Family and kids didn't work that well. They went back to conventions. And they actually positioned the city in a way that's accepted today. If you look at New York, what's happened since 9/11, you know, all the sdarot, how do you say, TV series, Friends, Sex and the City, Seinfeld, that positioned the city as a place you want to go and see. Now, these are things that we don't think about them day to day, but they work back here in our mind. And they say, hey, I got to go to New York and see that place. Where is that work? From our perspective, we're still looking for it. So I really think Tel Aviv is the #1 city in the world. And when I say it to people, they look at me and they start arguing it. But when you get into the argument, you prove it. And I had one guest who is Jewish, who arrived to the hotel, this is around 2 years ago, and he wasn't in Israel for 20 years. Jewish, lived in New York, moved to Miami. And we just got talking casually in the hotel, and we were going down the elevator together, just an elevator pitch, and I said, so what do you think about Tel Aviv now that you haven't seen it for 20 years and now you see it? He said, let me tell you what I think about Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is the love child after a wild night of sex and alcohol between New York and Miami. This is the guest saying this to me. And I think we're not vocal enough about it.
Thank you, Ran. As an OTA, because when I look at different OTA, they're just selling, you know, booking. It's booking online, hotels online. How do you see that? Experience, selling experience together.
Well, I think that OTAs these days are more into the bottom of the funnel, of the reservation funnel, rather than selling experiences. Unlike destinations or unlike hotels, for example, who are more focusing on higher levels of the reservation funnel, we're on more into the final sales. So I think that OTAs these days do not market enough all of the experiencing that could be shown on other websites, more experience-related websites. And I think that it's related to the revenue of the industry. They don't have any other option. They can't focus on the higher levels of the funnel.
Okay, before we sum up, any questions from the audience? There is an opportunity here. So then I would like to ask all the panelists, you know, one last question, and that would be, it's not a question, it's more kind of your vision or statement. You know, it just starting this day, I think it's starting a dialogue, which I think should have been here a long time ago. When you think about Israel as an innovative country, as a startup nation, and the one leading industry, which is actually the travel industry, haven't been present there. I just been this, David, I have to take you again to Jerusalem. It's nice what you're saying about Tel Aviv, nice, but there's only one city like Jerusalem. So,
but you know, I can say something about that too. A guest told me once about Tel Aviv. This will be good for Jerusalem. There are more bars than synagogues. God is a DJ, and your body is your temple in Tel Aviv. A bit of a difference.
And we have the Holy Spirit. Michael, we have to take him to a bar tour in the Machne Yehuda market.
Done that. I love Israel, don't worry.
Kidding.
I think we should have one convention bureau for the country also. And not one for Tel
No,
Aviv and one for
we were
Jerusalem.
being innovative before all the rest, you know. But seriously now, from the way you see, and you can get a little bit away from your daily job or the function of your hotel. But when you look at this starting of a dialogue, you know, what would you want to see happening to the travel tech industry in 2, 3, 5 years and today? And how would you want you yourself to engage into that? From professional point of view, it doesn't have to be from your daily work, but it can be from contributing to, from the knowledge and the experience that you have been getting so far to the people here. A lot of young people here have an amazing ideas, but they need someone to take over them, to embrace them, and to help them get through, you know, with their ideas and technology, not just to be left with their ideas, but actually to implement it. So how would you see, you know, this dialogue continuing from your point of view?
You know that over the past 30 years, the hotel industry really have changed, and with the whole change of the boutique hotel phenomena and the design hotels and the experience that really transformed the global industry and also in Israel. I wish that we would be able to embrace technology into our day-to-day activity as much as we can and as much as we have done, and have embraced new design and new experience and new vibe into our hotels. If we are able in the next 5, 6, 10 years to create, to transforms ourselves and our flexibility, and will be able to bring in new ideas and to dare with new technology, like we did with the design and style of the hotels. Look at what Fatal did with Nix. This is something that, let's say 7 years ago, they would never really imagine that they do something like that, and now they dare, and all the big companies around the world. I think that the same confidence and ability to dare and do something unique should also be in the innovation and the technology side. And if we're able to bring in all the great ideas that are being developed in Tel Aviv, I'm born and raised in Tel Aviv. You forgot the best joke about Jerusalem is that the best thing about Jerusalem is the way back to Tel Aviv. Yeah, so if we are able to bring in all the great ideas that are being developed in our city and in Israel in general into our hotels and to the hotel industry, that will be great.
I think from my perspective, I allocate probably 5 hours a week on a Sunday looking at startups that can impact our business. And I think that the way in for you guys and girls to consider into big international companies is via a local hotel, creating a better product with a certain exclusivity to that hotel. And I'm sure you'll agree with me also that we talk amongst our community of general managers in our region. If I find something that's interesting, and I'll tell my colleague Christophe in Paris, listen, I've tried this out, this is fantastic, why don't you try it out also? Then it will start getting, it'll infect all the rest of the region. Because at the end of the day, the general managers have got some kind of freedom to try things in their hotels. And if they work well, we'll tell our colleagues about it. And then, slowly but surely, it'll reach the regional director of the area also. And then, hopefully, for you guys and girls, it turns into a standard in that particular brand.
Well, I think that the travel industry is changing rapidly these days. From what we've seen so far was search related, and now we see the emergence of bots and additional solutions for the travel industry, for example. And there are great opportunities for Israeli startups to join this emerging market and this changing market. And I believe that the go-to-market is, as was mentioned here, is joining with a local player, trying to get knowledge, shortcut with technology, with commercial agreements, with getting inventory, and to try and search and find if there's anything that works here or in the local market, in addition to getting someone who has very good relations and collaboration with international players, like we do, for example, with the international OTAs, and try to leverage the local market activity into international activity?
I believe I have to start negotiating with the new ideas. But being practical, if you look at all the public hotel chains in Israel, the finance reports shows that maximum they are doing in between 15 to 20% GOP. I'm not talking about NOP. And as all of us, we know that the commission paying to OTAs, etc., which becomes a mainly factor these days, is running in between 15 to 30%. And we have to find a solution cheaper, having a better technology, keeping our quality of services in order to create the demand, and to create the demand, the guests coming back to us with the less expenses. Because at the bottom line, if this continues like that, and I don't see that any kind of a tremendous change will be with the expenses in Israel. I don't see that by tomorrow the expenses of payroll will be less. So there's only one way to cut expenses, and this is technology. And we have to find, through the technology, a better way to increase our total income and to cut our expenses. Because Expedia and Booking, with all the respect, and we love them, but we don't want to be owned by them.
I just want to add one last thing, final note, for all of you there with great ideas. Be patient with us, understand our challenges, and together we'll be able to do great things. It's really important that you will understand what we need and our challenges as we talked about it this morning, and give us some time. And we have no other choice but embrace the technology and work it with you. So eventually we'll have great things together. But we need your patience.
So before I will tell you my wish for the next year, I just want to tell you an anecdote that I was invited to Dallas, Texas a year ago to evangelical Christian big convention. And then they had all different destinations. They went up on stage and they were all trying to describe how great their destination was, the hotels, the beaches, the girls, whatever, whatever. And then I went upstairs and then they all looked at me. And then I say, you all really have this amazing place. We cannot compete that, not in the price, not in the beauty, not in the luxury. But we have one thing, David, that you cannot compete. We have a direct phone call to God. And then they loved it. So I think we have to acknowledge that we do have in Jerusalem a lot of uniqueness that cannot be compared to other cities in the world. But yes, telling you my own vision for next year. We just sum up the high holidays, and we have in the Jewish calendar this very important day, Yom Kippur, which we are actually praying the whole day. We are fasting for those of us who do fast. And we always look at backwards, and we also look at the present and to the future. And we always say, what are the scenes or what are the things that we have to improve for next year? So from my point of view, as a destination leading marketing city, I think it's very important that we will embrace all those startups, and not just by saying it and not by just a statement, but we should really establish the right platform. And I think that what Rome is doing here is a great first milestone, but we have to help him and support this initiative, not just by saying it, by really taking, engaging all the relevant stakeholders that can be partners of that. And we definitely in Jerusalem have the idea of helping those different kind of application, because it's not just a statement, it's help to accelerate a city to be more innovative in the way that we sell and market. And it cannot be just something that we say in vain, but it has to be a real serious commitment. So at least you have my commitment for the year to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you.